Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the Cornfield Customs channel, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the Streamliner project that is here behind me. I want to kind of talk about some of the design aspects, the engineering that's gone into it, why I started building it, when I started building it, and kind of showcase some of my favorite pieces I've designed and built for the car. There's a lot of interesting things that go on with this car. It was kind of the precursor to TNW Engineering. So make sure to stick around and we'll kind of talk about all the ins and outs of the Streamliner. All right, so when I started this project, it kind of also started TNW Engineering. And for those of you that don't know, TNW Engineering stands for That'll Never Work Engineering. And for any of you guys at home that build your own stuff, especially if you post it online or take it to shows, you're gonna get a large group of people that are just ignorant to what you're doing, and it's just gonna be like, oh, that'll never work, or that'll never work, this isn't gonna work, and so on. That's just the type of people that are out there. So when I started this, everybody said, oh, you'll never finish this project, it's a pipe dream, you won't even get the chassis mocked up. So that kind of started it as, it'll never happen. And then I started doing the suspension, that'll never work. The steering, that'll never work. The brakes, that'll never work. You know, everything kind of compounded into that'll never work. And I just kind of used that as fuel to fire the project and keep going and get everything to function. And then when I started the modified Roadster, it kind of carried through to that with suspension stuff on that's not gonna work, or an aluminum nose isn't gonna work, and just all of this stuff. So this project, as well as the Rouster Roadster, were the birthplace of TNW Engineering. And hopefully that's a little insightful into that. And as you can see, even though I've been in business almost 20 years, I still constantly get people that tell me my ideas, my concepts will never work in the real world. And the best way you can do that, to prove them wrong, is to actually get out there and do it. Because so far, everything that everybody has ever told me wouldn't happen or would never work, guess what? It does, because I had faith in myself, I've done the research, and I make it happen. So that's the birthplace of TNW Engineering and its association with the Streamliner. So I'm sitting here with the Streamliner, and I kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the backstory to the Streamliner, kind of why it exists, how it came to be where it's at now, the time frame I've been working on, and stuff like that. So I'll kind of get into it from the beginning. I've been going to Bonneville since 2011, which isn't a super long time, but it's a decent amount of time to go every year. So pretty early on into going to Bonneville, I got bit by the Bonneville bug, or the salt bug, and I wanted to build a land speed car. So, you know, a couple friends had been going out with us every year, and you know, I'm like, let's build a race car, let's build a Streamliner, and everybody kind of hem and hawed around for a long time. And you know, I kind of had some initial sketches and stuff and kind of a game plan, and finally I just got sick of waiting and said, you know what, I'm gonna do it with or without you. And in 2018, pretty much, I think it was right when I got home from Speed Week in August, I started ordering parts and materials to get the Streamliner going. I worked with a lot of reoccurring names on this project so far. Joshua Shaw did the initial line drawings, and then the Root Brothers did the initial color concept for me. So, you know, you hear those guys a lot, and I like to work with those guys. So that's why you hear on a lot of different projects, they've been involved and helped with the design aspects along the way. So in 2018, you know, got the tubing in, got it set up on the jig, and you know, just started building the chassis. I kind of had a ballpark of what I wanted. I think personally, the Redhead is the most iconic, beautiful Streamliner ever built, and that's kind of what I wanted. I didn't want to copy the Streamliner. I kind of wanted to base it off of it and put my own creative twist on that car. So that's kind of where I started, is, took that concept of what I thought was the best looking car, kind of changed it around, modernized some stuff, and put my own twist on it. So with that as our reference point, I continued building on from there, and kind of my thought is this is going to be a race car a couple times a year, a couple weeks. So the rest of that time, it needs to be a great representation of my business. So I wanted to kind of overcomplicate or make things have a little bit more of a wow factor. So I designed a lot more complicated parts. I could have done things a lot more simple, but again, I wanted to kind of go into the fabrication aspect and the engineering aspect to showcase what I'm capable of doing. So you'll notice, like on the suspension, the coilovers are layover. It's a very simple concept. It's just a one-to-one bell crank that translates a vertical movement into horizontal to go into the coilover. It's pretty straightforward, but it looks very impressive. So with all that stuff, I wanted to do doubler plates and a lot of detail work on all the bracketry, just to showcase, again, my fabrication skills and my welding skills. So the front and rear have that layover cantilever style suspension, and then I wanted to leave the inside of the engine compartment completely open, because when I first started, I didn't have an idea of what drivetrain I wanted to run. And as you've noticed on some of my other projects that I've talked about, I don't like to build myself into a corner. I don't want to build it to fit, let's say, a small block Chevy, and then I want to put in, an inline 8 in it, or something a little bit bigger or more powerful, or fit into a different class. So I wanted to leave the engine compartment open as much as humanly possible. That way we could run a single engine, dual engine, long engine and turbos. I mean, there's so many different options. So I wanted to leave that open, and with it being a center steer car, I didn't want the steering to come out and then take up some of that engine bay. So I designed a chain drive steering system for it, using high load roller chain and then the corresponding gears. And then I designed these little steering towers that hold the spindles and high load bearings, all of that stuff, to make it nice and compact, but also have a very good clean look. So it's almost like a sand cast part after it was machined. So what that does is it keeps the firewall pretty low profile, and it directs the steering down the chain system to the inside of the rail. And this is one thing I'm going to redo a little bit. I had it kicked to the outside of the rail just to give me a little bit more clearance. And the more I look at it, the more I don't really think I need that much room in the engine bay. And I can take one universal out just to simplify things a little bit. So I think I'm going to move that back inboard. It's pretty simple. Just cut the brackets off, flip them to the other side of the tube, and that'll be a simple solution. And so now the plan is to run a 2.8 liter Cummins diesel in the car, but that can always change. So with that, we're going to run compound turbos, water tanks, water to air intercoolers, all that stuff. So the open cockpit is going to be very beneficial for that. It just gives us a lot more room to work with. And land speed cars, especially Streamliners, packaging is everything. So kind of, if you notice on the front suspension, everything's kind of in groups. So on the front suspension, everything's kind of compact and tight together. And then you get the steering and clutch and brake system, and it's kind of tight and put together. And that way, everything has its own grouping, but everything in between those groupings is open and easy to work on and access. Everything on this car has had to have been hand designed, handmade. The wheels, I couldn't get an offset that I wanted in the diameter and width. So I ended up just making my own. I got the hoops from Dayton Wire Wheel, and then I sent out the pattern to be lasered, and the centers are 3/8 steel plate, had them final machined, and pressed everything together, got it balanced, welded it up. So, the wheels, the seat, the parachute tubes, everything is going to be handmade on this car, including the body. So the body, since I work in metal, I'm going to do an all aluminum body, and I'm trying to do this one a little bit different. You see a lot of guys, they'll build a wooden buck and they'll make the outer skins, which I've done on other projects. But you'll make the outer skin, and then on something like this, then you have to come back and build the inner structure. So then the buck is useless at that point other than holding the skins, and you still have to design the inner structure that will fit the skins correctly. So with this, I'm trying to do it more like a vintage aircraft, where I'm building an inner airframe out of aluminum L-channel and, you know, build the whole shape that I want in a skeleton, and then I will skin those areas, and then the buck will be that inner air structure, and it will remain in the car to give it its strength. So I'm trying to eliminate having to build the wooden buck and just do everything off of the inner air structure. So there'll be a lot more coming in this video series as things progress. This is a really, really long-term project. Like I said, I started this thing in 2018. It's currently the end of 2023. So I've got a ton of time in this car already, but we did take 2 years off to build the modified Roadster. And kind of the reasoning behind building the Roadster in between this project and the next was the fact that this car is a huge undertaking, time-wise and financially, and I don't think it's a good idea to take a car that's capable of 200 mile an hour in an enclosed cockpit for my first time driving on the salt. So that was the concept of doing the modified Roadster in between this car and getting it to the salt, was so we could have our practice car to license up, get seat time in, learn how to drive on the salt and on the dirt in a land speed car. And worst comes to worst, we could pull the flathead out of the modified Roadster and use it as a test bed for the engine in this car, or for this car, before it's finished, if we need to do that. So that was kind of why there was a 2-year break on the Streamliner itself. And now that the Roadster is pretty much done, other than routine maintenance and minor changes, it's time to get back to working on the Streamliner. So it's not going to be hot and heavy like it was on the modified Roadster, just due to the fact that this is a huge financial undertaking. So I'm going to do the Hanchard special and some other small stuff like the LS swap on the Rouster Roadster while I'm working on this, just so I can keep my other personal projects moving and going, and we can have fun and enjoy some of the cars that are here while this car is being done. So I don't know how many more years it might take. It could take 2 years, it could take 10 years. Pretty much I don't like to rush this kind of stuff. I would rather take my time, evaluate everything as I go, make changes as need be. Like I said, with the steering, there's a few other little things that I think I'm going to change. So I'm really excited to get back on this, and I mean, hopefully you guys can see some of the engineering that's gone into it. And you know, I try to prepare for different changes. You know, the salt conditions can be different, or we could change a suspension setup. So when you look at the pictures and stuff of the overview, all the bump stops are adjustable. It's got adjustable limiting straps on it, front and back. That way, in the chance that the body comes off or there's an incident and we lose aerodynamic downforce, it can't unload the suspension and become airborne. You know, I did a telescopic tilt column to make getting in and out easier, even though in an emergency situation and doing our bailout, we can't rely on that. But just trying to make things easier, and you know, all the design cues and that stuff for when it's not a race car, that it's a show car. So I think I've rambled on long enough at this point. Hopefully this is a little bit of an insight into what the Streamliner is and kind of the direction I'm going with it. And I do apologize that I've just thrown some pictures in over me talking, but I don't have a lot of videos of me working on the Streamliner to this point. I wasn't big into making videos back then. Everything was just all picture-based. So moving forward, I should have a lot more videos of progress, individual components, and that kind of stuff as things progress. So with that being said, I'm gonna wrap this video up. I've actually got some work I need to get done today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this video. Hopefully you like the Streamliner and the direction it's going, and hopefully you stick around to watch this and so many of our other projects going on in the shop. So please, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe, tell a friend, drop a comment, let me know how I'm doing, where I could do better, and kind of the direction you'd like to see this channel move, because I really want to get this thing moving forward, and all the help from you guys of watching and subscribing and telling your friends is so beneficial. So thank you guys so much, and we will catch you guys on the next one.